So, hey, what's your name?
Kaivan, good to be with you.
Pleasure. Where do you live? What's your story? What grade are
Yeah,
you in?
so grew up in the suburbs of New York in Westchester, and I'm currently in Cambridge, Massachusetts, dealing with a ton of snow. I was on the Clinton campaign on the digital organizing team, and they
Hillary
were,
Clinton?
yeah, not that
I was
old.
part of the Bill Clinton, so I just wanted to make sure.
I'd say I got the better Clinton. No, just kidding. um, but so really enjoyed that work and was able to develop relationships with both people working in the campaign space, but also just volunteers and people who, are doing every single thing they can from all across the country, and just like the most incredible, from nurses to people that are full-time campaign staff, et cetera. And so just have really enjoyed being able to access people like that in a way that I feel like I never imagined, at least like when I was in high school and things. So it's been really rewarding, and obviously very happy with the outcome of the election. But definitely agree with you that we hopefully will not just hit pause on all the cool things that people were doing, up through November, because obviously there's a lot at stake every election. Hopefully, people are realizing now.
What do you think you're going to do when you graduate?
I'm not sure. That is the question I am trying to answer desperately right now. Like one of the reasons that I pursued, education is because I'm hoping to have the choice to do work that I find fulfilling, but we will see the extent to which that pans out. But I'm really interested in, like government and, making things work better for people. I just haven't seen anywhere where I'm like, that's the place I want to be that's doing that work. So,
Do you,
I think that it's great that there's been so many startups actually, to a certain extent, whether it's Run for Something or Swing Left or
we left, yeah.
bunch of organizations. At the same time, I think that it's hard to tell whether those are institutions that will last, and whether I think, my personal opinion, I think it's great to be doing that work. I'm not sure we always think through what's happening. So, for example, like I think one takeaway from AOC and 2018 was, wow, like young people can do this. Young people should be in office, and I absolutely agree. Like, love my generation to have more representation. But that doesn't, to me, mean every random person on TikTok should be running for office or should be, coming up with necessarily the agenda that, happens, because I think we've been having like a very fundamentally dishonest conversation about policy so much. And that's what took me on Twitter is, I graduated from Brown in 2015, a super, super liberal place. And I consider myself pretty liberal, but I wasn't a fan of Bernie Sanders. I really found him to be a dishonest politician, and I don't think that he has, the record that I was telling you, I think, leaders should have. And it was
What's
just,
your take on AOC?
I actually, I have to say, I at first wasn't like over the moon thrilled, because I felt like I actually thought that her challenger Crowley had like handled the situation very classily, and I was like, she seemed like she was like overly combative, like accused him of like trying to still unseat her. It was like a weird thing happening. I don't know how closely you followed that, but I'd say like since then I've been wowed by her, because I feel like she is somebody who knows how to play the inside game of politics, which, I think is not ideal. And, she shines a light on that where she can, and say, well, this is the shady, creepy process that I just was part of because I'm in Congress. And, here, like, let me explain it to you because I think it's wrong. But she's also still been able to sort of energize the base. And I think that she's been somebody who has not stuck to the Bernie Sanders playbook of no compromise, burn it all down if I don't get what I want. She's been very vocal. I think a great advocate for her constituency. But also been able to compromise, been able to do things like vote for Speaker Pelosi and not have a temper tantrum about it, when super consequential things. So I think people that haven't gotten half the flack that she gets have gotten away with a lot more. But
Tell me, like, how do you do the research to do your topics? Like,
oh, sure. So, I mean, I really am on Twitter like all day long, which
oh,
is
really?
bad. So just like in real time as I'm seeing the news from people I trust, like sometimes it's a full story, but a lot of times, like now I follow like probably like over 1,000 journalists that I think like each one probably is like the best at their beat. So I think usually like whatever is breaking, or, even if it's pretty specific, I try to follow. Also some of the local New York political news that's been ramping up with the mayor race. So just have different people that, like, I'm like, okay, this is going to be true. They're going to be like early with the news. And so I feel comfortable sharing it.
I'm at a point now where MSNBC and CNN to me are so annoying because they have like, it's like they trounce out every hour, they trounce out the same 5 people from that hour to say the same things that they've been saying in the hour before, because it's like, it's not even news anymore. You know what I mean? Like you can't, there's no news. I go to the internet to get news because TV is not a news.
Yeah, I don't really watch those things live either. I'm always intrigued by how people are stuck to that all day.
I know. Well,
I'd rather watch C-SPAN, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing is that I think politicians should they should be put out to pasture at a certain point, and Joe Manchin has hit that point, as is Dianne Feinstein. I mean, the Democrats have some old doozies representing us in that building. I don't care what anybody says, it's too much. But anyway, so what else? What other things are you hoping for in this Biden administration to happen?
I'm happy with this cabinet, excited about that. I'm hoping that, I think there's been this like big promise, and I felt it, and I appreciate the level that I felt it so far, where like, it was like, okay, you don't have to spend every minute on Twitter wondering if we're going to go to nuclear war. And that was like super appealing part of the Biden pitch, I think. But at the same time, like, to what you're doing, right, with TikTok, like, I don't think that they should give up on the opportunity that tech and digital provide. And I think in a lot of ways, arguably, the Obama administration did drop the ball on that, where they really got a lot of credit for the way that they ran his campaign on Facebook and things like that early, like super early. And then they didn't, continue to evolve with those trends. So like the people that were running Obama's campaign and doing digital stuff, like they were out of college in 2008, 2010. And so, I mean, now those people are 30 plus, like, I think the run for something.
I'm definitely 30 plus.
Which is great. That's totally fine. But the idea that like an early adopter of Facebook in 2011 is also going to be the right person and hip enough and like plugged in, now that social media is actually just for everyone. It's really not for techie kind of nerdier people. And so the messaging, I think, is the barrier, because you really, I think at this point, and one of the things that I've been surprised by in the political space is just how little about actual politics people in different functions of the political process know. So like you could be a digital person and know nothing about, political strategy or even policy. Right. And that's okay. Like obviously, it's great to be able to bring some of the people that are the best in their industry to, work on something as important as politics. But there is something that you're missing there when there's a disconnect between the person doing the job of social media or, whatever the organizing task is, and that person doesn't really understand what the candidate, whether it's a presidential candidate or a different candidate, is selling, and doesn't really almost even believe.
So you think if they don't connect to the passion of what the policy is, that they're not the right person necessarily to be
I think that would calling it. That's the essence of what I'm saying. I think the way that, there's obviously a line there, because you can't have, at some point, you're not going to have like everyone be some expert in that. But I do think some baseline understanding of, what are we doing here is helpful.
Right. Bill Gates, who I think is amazing, but he can shut up too, telling everyone, oh, Donald Trump should be allowed on all his platforms. Like, who cares what you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the idea that the tech people know anything about policy or regulation or who should be moderating their platforms is a joke. Like, and one thing that drives me crazy is these like engineers essentially think they're geniuses because they started a company. It's like, you built the product. Like, on what planet does, like, you're not going to have the contractor be the architect. Like, are you? Like, no, there's somebody that understands the, okay, you told me that if I press this button, this will happen. Why does that relate to you understanding, how we would regulate how billions of humans interact and the dangers that come with that?
Perfect example is Mark Zuckerberg, right? Perfect example. He's like, it's like giving the devil the keys to, the kingdom of heaven. You know what I mean? It's just.
And let's be like, I'm not saying he's a dumb guy, but like Facebook started to rate women on their hotness, right? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, he wasn't in it to solve the world's problems, and that's okay. But like, you know,
On
he's
the
got
contrary, on the contrary,
right.
on the
Right.
absolute other end of that
Polar opposite.
spectrum.
You're right.
Like our education system is like, it's like we might as well just open up a book with nothing in it. You know what I mean? We're you know, the fallacies that we're raised on, you know, that the Civil War, like even they say like the Civil War was not like, oh, and the white people from the North wanted to save the blacks, you know what I mean? Which is what in essence we've been
It is
taught.
amazing. It is. I always think of that. I'm like, wow, like this is the way I learned this topic in history, and now that
And
it's
how
like
did we
a
learn
decade later,
and
I'm like,
how did we learn Thanksgiving?
so bad.
I refuse to eat turkey. No, I'm kidding. I happen to love turkey. No, but the idea of the stuff that is so wrong with so much of what we have so much, you know, that's why to me, all I can do is just focus on good messaging, good vibe. I mean, we're here for a second on earth, you know, and I feel like, you know, whatever time left, I want to be able to feel like I'm part of at least trying to be in the solution of it all. Because if I try to fix anything, it's going to just end up blowing up in my face. You know what I mean? So anyway, so that's what brought me to you and to all the other people.
Yeah, thanks so much for reaching out. Let me
Yeah,
definitely
no,
follow up. You know,
I think you're really smart. I could tell before we even had this conversation. I think you're also very opinionated. Beyond, but I think funny and like whatever, and very honest. And I think the world needs, you know, the next phase of who runs our world needs to be more people like you.
appreciate it.
You have a good night and a good week, and
Thank you. You too.
stay warm over there.
Well,
Take care.
bye.
Bye.